Young Min-ho never imagined that helping a bleeding stranger in an alley would lead him face to face with the woman who held his entire future in her hands. But on that cold December night in Chicago, as snow began to fall and sirens wailed in the distance, he made a choice that would change everything. Unaware that the vulnerable woman he was protecting was actually the ruthless CEO everyone said was impossible to reach. Before we begin the story, comment below with the city you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Min-ho had been in America for exactly 3 months, and every single day felt like a test he was failing. At 28, he should have been sitting in a corner office in Seoul, preparing to take over his family's security conglomerate, Aegis International, one of South Korea's largest private protection firms. Instead, he was working the graveyard shift as a rookie security guard at a mid-tier Chicago office building, wearing a uniform that didn't quite fit and fielding calls about broken vending machines. His father's words still echoed in his mind from their last conversation. You want to prove yourself, then do it without the family name. Start from the bottom like I did. When you understand what real security work means, not just sitting behind a desk managing contracts, then you can come home. So here he was, 3 months into what was supposed to be a 1-year character-building exercise, as his father called it. Min-ho had taken his mother's maiden name, Park, to avoid any connection to the Jung family empire. He'd found the cheapest studio apartment in a decent neighborhood, bought used furniture, and applied for entry-level security positions until someone hired him. The irony wasn't lost on him. Back in Seoul, Aegis International had been trying for 2 years to land a contract with Madison Hayes, the 32-year-old CEO of Titan Industries, one of America's fastest-growing tech conglomerates. Hayes had a reputation for being brilliant, demanding, and virtually impossible to meet. She rejected security proposals from every firm that approached her, insisting her existing team was sufficient. But Min-ho's father knew better. Intelligence reports suggested Hayes was being targeted, corporate espionage, hostile takeover attempts, possibly worse. Aegis wanted that contract not just for the revenue, but because protecting someone like Madison Hayes would cement their reputation in the American market. And now Min-ho was spending his nights checking employee badges and watching security camera feeds in a building that Hayes would never set foot in. The December cold hit him like a wall when he stepped outside for his midnight patrol. Chicago winters were brutal, nothing like Seoul. Min-ho pulled his thin security jacket tighter, his breath forming clouds in the frozen air. The street was empty. Most businesses closed for the night. Streetlights cast orange pools on the snow-dusted sidewalk. He was halfway through his usual route when he heard it, a sound that made his training kick in immediately. A woman's voice, sharp with pain, coming from the alley beside the building. "Stay back!" Min-ho's hand went to his radio, but something made him move toward the sound instead of calling it in first. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was 3 months of feeling useless finally pushing him to act. The alley was dark, lit only by a flickering security light. He saw her immediately, a woman in an expensive coat, backing away from 2 men who had her cornered. Blood ran down the side of her face from a cut above her eyebrow. Her designer purse lay on the ground, contents scattered across the wet pavement. "Just give us the phone," one of the men growled. "We know you have files on it." The woman's voice was steady despite her injury. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Wrong answer!" One of the men lunged forward. The woman tried to dodge, but her heel caught on something and she stumbled. That's when Min-ho moved. Years of training, taekwondo since childhood, advanced security tactics, hand-to-hand combat, all of it came flooding back. He didn't announce himself, didn't waste time with warnings. He simply acted. The first attacker went down hard when Min-ho's shoulder caught him in the ribs, slamming him into the brick wall. The second man spun around, pulling a knife, but Min-ho was already inside his guard. A strike to the wrist sent the knife clattering away. A sweep of the leg, and the second attacker joined his friend on the ground. "Run!" Min-ho shouted to the woman, not taking his eyes off the 2 men who were struggling to their feet. But she didn't run. Instead, she grabbed her phone from where it had fallen and held it up, camera facing the attackers. "I've got your faces now, and I know exactly who sent you." The two men exchanged looks, then scrambled to their feet and ran, disappearing into the night. Minho turned to the woman, his heart still pounding with adrenaline. "Are you okay? You're bleeding." "I'm fine," she interrupted. But even in the dim light, he could see she was swaying slightly. The cut above her eye was deep, and blood had soaked into her coat collar. "You're not fine. Let me—" He reached for his radio to call for help, but she grabbed his wrist. "No police, no ambulance." Her eyes met his, and even injured and shaken, there was an unmistakable authority in her gaze. "Please, if this gets reported, it becomes a whole situation I can't afford right now." Minho hesitated. Every protocol, every rule of his job said to call this in immediately. But something about the way she looked at him, desperate but determined, made him reconsider. "At least let me help with that cut," he said. "My building has a first aid station. It's just inside." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but quickly." He helped her gather her scattered belongings, phone, wallet, keys, various items that spoke of wealth and status he tried not to notice. She moved stiffly, favoring her left side, and he wondered if she had other injuries she wasn't mentioning. Inside the building, Minho led her to the small security office on the ground floor. The bright fluorescent lights made her injuries look worse. The cut was still bleeding, and a bruise was already forming on her cheekbone. "Sit," he said, pulling out the first aid kit. "I need to clean that wound." She lowered herself carefully into the chair, wincing as she did. Now that they were in the light, Minho could see her more clearly. Mid-30s maybe. Dark hair pulled back in what had probably been an elegant style before the attack. Sharp features, intelligent eyes, expensive clothes that marked her as someone important. There was something familiar about her, but he couldn't place it. "This is going to sting," he warned, opening an antiseptic wipe. "I've had worse," she said quietly. He worked carefully, cleaning the wound with gentle efficiency. His hands were steady despite the situation, another thing his father's training had drilled into him. "This needs stitches. You should really go to a hospital." "I can't." She closed her eyes briefly as he applied butterfly bandages to hold the wound closed. Those men, they weren't random muggers. They knew things. About my company, about files I've been compiling. Minho's hands paused. "You're saying this was planned?" "I've been investigating some suspicious activity in my company. Someone's been selling proprietary information to competitors. I got too close, apparently." She opened her eyes and looked at him directly. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be telling you this. You just saved my life, and now I'm dragging you into corporate espionage." "It's okay," Minho said, finishing with the bandages. "But you need to tell someone. If people are willing to attack you on the street, I will. But I need to be careful about who I trust." She stood slowly, testing her balance. "Thank you for helping me. Really. Not many people would have stepped in like that. Anyone would have done the same thing." "No," she said firmly. "They wouldn't. Most people would have called 911 and watched from a distance. You actually helped." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, which she pressed into his hand. "If you ever need anything at all, call this number." Minho glanced down at the card. It was elegant, understated, just a name and phone number embossed in silver on black cardstock. The name made his breath catch. Madison Hayes, CEO, Titan Industries. He looked up sharply, but she was already moving toward the door, still favoring her left side, but walking with determined purpose. "Wait," he called out. You're Madison Hayes?" She turned back, a slight smile on her lips despite her injuries. "And you're a very good security guard who just saved the life of someone who really needed saving. I won't forget that, Mr. Park," he said automatically, his mind reeling. "Park Minho. Mr. Park." She nodded once. "Thank you again. For everything. Oh." And then she was gone, disappearing through the front doors into the snowy Chicago night, leaving Minho standing in his fluorescent-lit office, holding the business card of the woman his family had been trying to reach for 2 years. The woman he'd just saved without having any idea who she was. The woman who, he was suddenly certain, was going to change everything about his carefully planned year of proving himself. The next morning, Minho sat in his tiny studio apartment, staring at Madison Hayes' business card like it might explode. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying the attack over and over, the professional way those men had moved, the specific things they'd said about files and information, the way Madison had handled herself despite being injured and outnumbered. This wasn't just a mugging gone wrong. This was something much more serious. He pulled out his laptop and did what he should have done months ago when he first arrived in Chicago. Researched Madison Hayes thoroughly. The search results were overwhelming. Hundreds of articles, interviews, profiles. He clicked through them systematically, building a picture of the woman he'd helped last night. Madison Hayes. From foster care to Forbes. The headline caught his attention first. He read the article carefully, learning things that made last night's attack even more concerning. Madison had grown up in Chicago's foster care system, bouncing between homes until she aged out at 18 with nothing but a GED and determination. She'd worked 3 jobs while putting herself through community college, then Northwestern's business school on a full scholarship. By 25, she'd founded Titan Industries with borrowed money and an idea for streamlining corporate logistics software. 7 years later, Titan was worth $3.2 billion. Madison owned 60% of it outright, making her one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in America. The articles painted her as brilliant, but difficult, demanding, impossible to please. She'd gone through 7 security chiefs in 5 years. She rejected partnerships, avoided social events, and rarely gave interviews. One profile called Chicago's most elusive CEO. But the business press also respected her. Titan's technology was revolutionary. Her leadership was transforming how Fortune 500 companies manage their supply chains. And she'd done it all without family connections, without old money, without any of the advantages that usually bought that kind of success. She'd built everything from nothing, alone. Minho sat back, processing all of this. He thought about the woman he'd met last night. Injured, shaken, but still thinking strategically about who to trust and how to handle the situation. Still determined to solve her own problems. His phone rang, startling him. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Park? The voice was cool, professional, female, but not Madison. This is Rebecca Chen, executive assistant to Madison Hayes. Ms. Hayes would like to meet with you today to properly thank you for your assistance last night. Would you be available at 2 p.m.? Minho's heart raced. Yes, I can be available. Excellent. I'll send you the address. Please come alone, and don't mention this meeting to anyone. A pause. Ms. Hayes values discretion above all else. I understand. The call ended. 30 seconds later, a text arrived with an address in downtown Chicago. Not Titan's main office, but a residential building in one of the city's most exclusive neighborhoods. Minho looked at the time. He had 6 hours to decide what he was going to do. The smart thing would be to call his father, explain the situation, leverage this unexpected connection into the contract Aegis had been pursuing. This was the opportunity they'd been waiting for. Direct access to Madison Hayes. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at him last night, when she said most people wouldn't have helped. Maybe it was the vulnerability he'd seen beneath her CEO armor. Maybe it was just that he'd spent 3 months being nobody, and the idea of using her this way felt wrong. He spent the morning researching more about Titan Industries, learning everything he could. The company had been the target of 3 hostile takeover attempts in the past 2 years. 2 major competitors had been caught attempting industrial espionage, and 6 months ago, Titan's former CFO had resigned abruptly amid rumors of ethics violations, though nothing was ever proven publicly. Whatever Madison was investigating, she'd made powerful enemies. At 1:30, Minho left his apartment wearing the only decent clothes he owned, dark slacks and a button-down shirt that he usually saved for family video calls. He took the L train downtown, watching Chicago's skyline grow closer through the train windows. The address led him to a converted warehouse building, luxury lofts in what had probably been an industrial space decades ago. Very expensive, very private. A doorman checked his ID against a list, then directed him to the top floor. Madison Hayes answered the door herself. She looked different in daylight, in casual clothes. Dark jeans, a cream sweater, hair down around her shoulders. The butterfly bandages were still visible above her eyebrow, and there was a purple bruise on her cheekbone, but she stood straight and strong. Her eyes, he noticed they were grey-green in the afternoon light, assessed him with the same sharp intelligence he remembered from last night. "Mr. Park," she said, stepping back to let him enter. "Thank you for coming." The loft was stunning. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than his car. But what caught Minho's attention was the wall of screens in what looked like a home office, visible through an open door. Multiple monitors, security feeds, data streams. She noticed him looking. "I work from home sometimes when I need to think without interruptions. It's impressive. It's paranoid," she corrected with a slight smile. "But apparently justified, given last night." She gestured to a leather couch. "Please sit. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be good. Thank you." She moved to the kitchen, open plan, sleek and modern, and returned with 2 glasses of water. She sat in a chair across from him, her posture relaxed but alert. Everything about her radiated control, even in her own home, even injured. "I wanted to thank you properly," Madison began. "What you did last night, most people wouldn't have reacted that way. Your training is obvious." "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Minho chose his words carefully. "I studied taekwondo growing up. Some other martial arts later. I wanted to work in security, so I trained seriously." "You're good. Very good." She took a sip of water. "Which makes me curious. You're clearly overqualified for a building security position. Why are you working that job?" He'd prepared for this question, but under her steady gaze, the rehearsed answer died on his lips. There was something about her, maybe because she'd built everything herself, maybe because she valued honesty above courtesy, that made him want to tell her the truth. "I'm from Seoul," he said finally. "My father runs a security company there. He wanted me to understand the business from the ground up before taking on leadership responsibilities. So I'm proving myself, learning what real security work means. By working as a building guard in Chicago for minimum wage." "Yes." She nodded slowly, and he thought he saw approval in her expression. "That's actually smart. Too many people in executive positions have no idea what their frontline employees actually do." She set down her water glass. "I'm going to be direct with you, Mr. Park. May I call you Minho?" "Please. Call me Madison." She leaned forward slightly. "Last night wasn't random. I've been investigating a leak in my company. Someone's selling proprietary information to competitors. I've narrowed it down to 3 possible suspects, all in my executive team. Those men who attacked me were professionals. They knew where I'd be, what I was carrying, what they were looking for. Which means someone on your team told them." "Exactly." Her jaw tightened. "I can't trust my own security right now. My current team reports to my COO, who's one of the 3 suspects. If I bring in a new firm, word will spread, and whoever's betraying me will know I'm closing in." Minho saw where this was going. "You need someone from outside your company. Someone nobody would notice. I need someone I can trust. Someone who's already proven they're willing to step in when it matters." She held his gaze. "I need you." The offer hung in the air between them. Minho's mind raced through implications. This was exactly the kind of situation his father had trained, not just protecting a client physically, but navigating the complex web of corporate politics and internal threats. But it was also dangerous. If Madison was right about the betrayal, he'd be walking into a situation where powerful people had already shown they were willing to use violence. "What exactly are you proposing?" I want to hire you as my personal security consultant. Technically, you'd report directly to me outside the normal chain of command. Your job would be to watch my back while I finish this investigation and to help me figure out who's betraying me. She paused. I'll pay you $50,000 for 1 month of work, plus expenses. Minho's yearly salary as a building guard was barely $30,000. She was offering him more than that for a single month. That's a lot of money, he said carefully. It's a lot of risk, Madison countered. Those men last night weren't playing around. If they'd gotten what they wanted, I don't think they would have just walked away. And if you help me, you'll be a target too. Why me? You could hire professionals, real executive protection. I told you, I can't trust the normal channels right now, and you. She smiled slightly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. You helped me last night, before you knew who I was. Before you knew there was anything in it for you. That kind of integrity is rare, especially in my world. Minho thought about his father's words. Learn what real security work means. This was about as real as it got. Close protection work with genuine threats, corporate espionage, internal investigations. Everything he'd been studying for years, handed to him on a silver platter. But there was something else. Something about the way Madison looked at him, the way she'd trusted him with this information when she said she couldn't trust anyone else. He'd saved her life last night. Walking away now felt like abandoning someone who genuinely needed help. I'll do it, he said. But I need to be honest about something. My last name isn't actually Park. It's Young. My father is Young Taiwan, CEO of Aegis International. Madison's expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation, then something that might have been hurt. So this is about getting your father's company a contract with Titan. No, Minho said firmly. My father doesn't know I met you. He doesn't know about any of this. I took my mother's maiden name specifically so I could learn, without anyone knowing who I was. That was the whole point of this year. She studied him for a long moment. If you're Young Taiwan's son, you could have called him this morning. Told him you made contact with me. Aegis has been trying to reach me for 2 years. I know. I saw the rejected proposals in our files before I came to America. But you didn't call him. No. Why not? Minho met her eyes. Because last night you needed help from a person, not from a company. And this morning, you needed someone you could trust, not someone who'd see you as a contract to win. Maybe that's naive. Maybe I'm making a stupid business decision. But it's the truth. The silence stretched between them. Then Madison smiled, a real smile this time, reaching her eyes despite the bruise and the bandages. Okay, Minho Jung, I believe you. She stood, extending her hand. Let's catch whoever's trying to destroy my company. He shook her hand, feeling the firm grip, the warmth of her palm against his. Something passed between them in that moment. Trust, maybe. Understanding. The beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. When do we start? He asked. Right now. She walked to her home office and returned with a folder. These are the 3 suspects. I need you to help me figure out which one is the traitor. And we need to do it before they realize I'm onto them. Minho opened the folder, looking at the photographs and profiles inside. 3 executives, all with impeccable credentials and years of loyalty to Madison. One of them had tried to have her harmed or worse last night, and now it was his job to figure out which one. Over the next 2 weeks, Minho became a shadow in Titan Industries' gleaming headquarters. Officially, he was conducting a comprehensive security audit. Unofficially, he was hunting a traitor. The 3 suspects couldn't have been more different. Gerald Henderson, the COO, was old-school corporate, grey hair, expensive suits, an office filled with awards and photos from his consulting days. He was methodical, risk-averse, and clearly uncomfortable with Minho's presence. Every interaction felt like a chess match, each question answered with careful precision. Dr. Patricia Kim, the CTO, was brilliantly chaotic. Jeans and hoodies, multiple monitors displaying code, a whiteboard covered in algorithms. She was direct, sometimes brutally so, and seemed genuinely angry about the leaks. She'd actually helped Minho access system logs, pointing out anomalies she'd discovered herself. Marcus Wolf, the CFO, was smooth and confident. Designer everything. A corner office with Lake Michigan views, the kind of charm that came from years of dealing with investors. He treated Minho like a curiosity, someone to be sized up and categorized. Every conversation felt like a negotiation. Minho spent his days reviewing access logs, interviewing staff, and watching security footage. He spent his evenings with Madison, going over what he'd learned, building their case piece by piece. Those evening meetings were becoming something more than just professional debriefs. It started small. Madison ordering Thai food because Minho mentioned missing spicy food from home. Minho bringing her decent coffee because the office stuff, she'd complained, tasted like hot cardboard. Conversations that drifted from suspects and evidence to life stories and dreams. He learned that she still volunteered at the foster care agency where she'd grown up, that she could quote entire scenes from The Princess Bride, that she'd taught herself to code at the public library because she couldn't afford a computer. She learned that he'd wanted to be a teacher before his father convinced him the family business needed him, that he played guitar badly but enthusiastically, that he still called his mother every Sunday morning soul time, no matter how exhausted he was. One evening, 3 weeks into the investigation, they were in Madison's loft going over financial records when Minho noticed something. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a series of transactions. Marcus approved a consulting contract for $250,000 to a firm called Vanguard Strategic Solutions, but I can't find any deliverables, no reports, no documentation of what they actually did. Madison leaned over his shoulder to look at the screen, and Minho was suddenly very aware of her proximity. The scent of her shampoo, the warmth of her presence, the way her hair fell forward as she studied the data. "Vanguard Strategic Solutions," she murmured. "I don't remember approving that." "You didn't. Look, Marcus has authorization up to $300,000 for operational expenses. He stayed just under the threshold where he'd need your signature." Madison straightened, her expression hardening. "Pull up everything you can find on that company." 20 minutes of research revealed that Vanguard Strategic Solutions was a shell company registered in Delaware. No website, no employees, no actual services offered. The payment had been split into 5 installments over 6 months, each one carefully timed to avoid scrutiny. "He's laundering money," Madison said quietly. "But to who? And why?" Minho dug deeper, tracing the money through multiple accounts. It took hours, the Chicago night deepening around them, but finally, he found it. The money had ultimately been transferred to an account controlled by Cortec Industries, Madison's biggest competitor. "Marcus isn't just stealing information," Minho said, turning to look at her. "He's being paid directly by Cortec. This isn't corporate espionage, it's outright betrayal." Madison was very still, her face pale in the glow of the monitors. "How long?" "Based on these records, at least 8 months. Maybe longer if there are other shell companies we haven't found yet." She stood abruptly, walking to the windows, her arms wrapped around herself. Minho recognized the gesture now. It meant she was processing something painful, trying to hold herself together. "I hired Marcus 2 years ago," she said, her voice tight. "He came highly recommended, McKinsey background, top MBA program. I thought—" She trailed off, then continued. "I thought he believed in what we were building. I thought he was loyal." Minho moved to stand beside her at the window. The city spread out below them. Millions of lights representing millions of lives. And somewhere out there was a man who'd betrayed everything Madison had built. "We have him now," Minho said gently. "This is enough to go to the authorities, to the board. We can stop him." "Not yet." Madison's jaw set with determination. "If we move now, he'll know we're onto him. He'll destroy evidence, warn his contacts at Cortec. I want everything, every file he's stolen, every payment he's received, every person he's worked with. Madison, the longer we wait, the more dangerous this becomes. He tried to have you attacked. When he realizes we're closing in—" "I know the risks," she interrupted, turning to face him. "But I didn't build Titan by playing it safe. I built it by being smarter and tougher than everyone who tried to tear me down. They were standing close now, close enough that Minho could see the flecks of gold in her grey-green eyes, could feel the intensity radiating from her like heat from a fire. You don't have to be tough all the time, he said quietly. Not with me. Something shifted in her expression, a crack in the armor she wore so carefully. For just a moment, he saw the woman beneath the CEO, the foster kid who'd fought her way to the top and was terrified of falling back down. If I let myself be weak, even for a second, everything falls apart, she whispered. That's not weakness, it's trust. They stood there in the silence of her loft, the city glittering below them, and Minho realized that somewhere along the way, this had stopped being just a job. Madison Hayes had become someone he cared about, not as a client, not as a business opportunity, but as a person. A brilliant, complicated, fiercely independent person who'd been alone for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone else share the weight. Madison's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. She stepped back, checking the message, and her face went pale. What is it? Minho asked immediately. She turned the phone so he could see. A photo of the two of them, taken tonight, visible through her loft windows. The message below read, "Tell your bodyguard to back off, or he'll be the next one to have an accident." Minho's blood ran cold. They've been watching us. They know we're investigating. Marcus knows, Madison corrected. He's escalating. We need to call the police, now. This is a direct threat. And tell them what? That we think my CFO is embezzling funds and threatening us. With what proof? Digital records that could have been fabricated. A photo that could have been taken by anyone. Madison shook her head. Corporate investigations don't work like that. We need ironclad evidence, and we need to move fast. What are you thinking? A trap. Madison's eyes gleamed with determination. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell Marcus that I'm planning to announce Titan's IPO next week. He's been pushing for it for months. It would make him incredibly wealthy, but it would also mean outside auditors examining our books. Minho understood immediately. He'll panic. Try to clean up the evidence before the auditors can find it. Exactly. And when he does, we'll catch him in the act. She looked at him seriously. But Minho, this is going to be dangerous. If Marcus realizes it's a trap, he'll know we're onto him. He's already shown he's willing to use violence. Then we make sure we're ready for that. The next morning, Minho called the one person he knew he could trust, his father. The video call connected at 7 a.m. Chicago time, which meant it was 10 p.m. in Seoul. Young Taewon's face filled the screen, his expression moving from surprise to concern. Minho, is something wrong? Appa, I need your help, and I need you to keep this confidential, even from the company. His father's expression sharpened. Tell me. Minho explained everything, meeting Madison, the investigation, what they'd discovered about Marcus, the threats. His father listened without interrupting, his face growing grimmer with each revelation. You've gotten yourself into something very serious, Taewon said finally. This Marcus Wolf, if he's working with Cortec, he has significant resources behind him. They won't just give up. I know. That's why I need your expertise. We're setting a trap, but I want to make sure we're protected if things go wrong. His father was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I'll make some calls. I have contacts in Chicago. Former military, completely trustworthy. They can provide backup without making it obvious. He paused. But Minho, you need to understand something. Once you spring this trap, there's no going back. If Marcus is as dangerous as you think, he'll retaliate. I understand. And this Madison Hayes? His father's eyes were knowing. She's not just a client anymore, is she? Minho hesitated, then shook his head. No, she's not. Then you protect her with everything you have. Do you understand? Everything. I will. Good. His father's expression softened slightly. Your mother would be proud of you. You've learned what I sent you there to learn. That real security work isn't about protocols and procedures. It's about protecting people who need protecting no matter the cost. After the call ended, Minho sat in his apartment, thinking about what his father had said. No matter the cost. He was prepared for that. Whatever it took to keep Madison safe, he would do it. That afternoon, Madison called an emergency executive meeting. Min-ho positioned himself in the conference room's observation area, watching through one-way glass as she delivered her bombshell. "I've decided to take Titan public," Madison announced, her voice steady and professional. "We'll be announcing next week with the IPO planned for Q2. I wanted you all to know first." The reactions were immediate and varied. Henderson looked shocked, Patricia surprised but thoughtful. But Marcus lit up like someone had just handed him a winning lottery ticket. "That's fantastic news," Marcus said, leaning forward eagerly. "I've been saying for months that an IPO is our best path forward. This will unlock tremendous value for all of us." "I'm glad you approve," Madison replied coolly. "Of course, this means we'll have external auditors going through our books with a microscope. SEC requirements are very thorough." Just for a second, less than a second, Marcus's expression flickered. Fear, quickly masked, but Min-ho caught it. "Of course," Marcus said smoothly. "Our books are impeccable. Nothing to worry about there." But Min-ho knew better. In Marcus's mind, alarms were already sounding. He had days, maybe hours, to clean up 8 months of embezzlement before auditors discovered it. The meeting ended, and Min-ho watched through the glass as Marcus practically ran back to his office. "He took the bait," Madison said quietly, appearing beside Min-ho in the observation room. "Now we wait for him to make his move." They didn't have to wait long. That evening, after most employees had left, Min-ho's surveillance equipment picked up Marcus returning to his office. Through carefully hidden cameras, they watched as he logged into his computer and began systematically deleting files. "He's erasing the evidence," Madison whispered. They were in her office, watching the feed on Min-ho's tablet. "Not all of it." Min-ho smiled grimly. "I created backup copies of everything yesterday. He's deleting the visible files, but we have everything." Marcus worked frantically for an hour, deleting documents, clearing browser histories, removing any trace of Vanguard's strategic solutions from Titan's financial records. When he was done, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Min-ho had audio surveillance set up, but the quality was poor. Still, they caught fragments. "Need to accelerate the timeline. Hayes is going public. Audit will find. Need to move now." Madison grabbed Min-ho's arm. "He's calling someone. Cortec, probably. Or someone worse." Min-ho pulled out his own phone, texting his father's contacts. "We need to move. Now." But before they could act, Marcus ended his call and left the building. Through security cameras, they watched him get into his car and drive away. "Should we follow him?" Madison asked. "My father's people are on it." "But Madison," Min-ho turned to face her, "I think we need to get you somewhere safe. If Marcus is accelerating his timeline, and if those men from the alley were working for him..." "I'm not hiding. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be smart. We have the evidence. We can turn this over to the authorities tonight. But if Marcus thinks he's cornered, he might do something desperate." Madison was quiet for a long moment, staring at the darkening city beyond her windows. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but not my loft. He knows that address. And not here. Somewhere unexpected." "My apartment," Min-ho suggested. "It's registered under my mother's maiden name, in a neighborhood nobody would think to look. Completely off the grid." She looked at him, something vulnerable in her expression. "Are you sure?" "Madison, I've been sure about you since the moment I found you in that alley. Let me keep you safe. Please." They took Min-ho's beat-up Honda, deliberately choosing the least conspicuous vehicle in Titan's parking garage. The drive to his apartment was tense, both of them checking mirrors for any sign of being followed. Min-ho's studio apartment was exactly what Madison would have expected. Tiny, sparse, clean. A futon that doubled as a couch, a small kitchen, a bathroom that barely fit both the shower and toilet. But it was warm, and it was safe, and right now, that was all that mattered. "It's not much," Min-ho said, suddenly self-conscious about bringing a billionaire CEO into his barely furnished studio. "It's perfect," Madison replied, and she meant it. This was real, no pretense, no luxury for luxury's sake, Just genuine shelter. Thank you. Minho's phone buzzed, a text from his father's contact. Subject met with two individuals at warehouse in South Loop, appeared to be exchanging money, photos attached. Minho opened the photos, and his blood ran cold. The two individuals Marcus had met were the same men who'd attacked Madison in the alley. He showed Madison the phone silently. Her face went white. So it was Marcus all along. He sent those men after me. We have enough now, Minho said firmly. I'm calling the police. We're done playing this game. But before he could dial, his apartment door exploded inward. Minho reacted on pure instinct, pushing Madison behind him as two figures rushed into the apartment. He recognized them immediately, the men from the alley, the men from the warehouse photos. The first man had a gun. Time seemed to slow. Minho saw the weapon rising, saw Madison's eyes widen in fear behind him, felt his body moving before his mind even processed the decision. He grabbed Madison and dove toward the bathroom, the only room with a door that locked. A gunshot cracked behind them, wood splintering from his doorframe. They crashed through the bathroom door, Minho slamming it shut and locking it, even as another shot punched through the thin wood. Stay down, Minho shouted, pulling Madison into the bathtub, putting the porcelain between them and the bullets. The bathroom was tiny, maybe 6 by 6 feet. The walls were thin. The door wouldn't hold for long. Minho pulled out his phone with shaking hands, dialing 911. Shots fired. Armed intruders. 3247 North Sheffield, apartment 2B, he said rapidly. Officer needs assistance. Another shot, and this time the door lock shattered. The door swung open, and the first man stepped in, gun raised. What happened next? Minho would remember in freeze frames for the rest of his life. The man's arm extending, the gun aimed at Madison, Minho launching himself forward, catching the man's wrist, forcing the gun upward. Another shot, deafening in the tiny space, the bullet going wild into the ceiling, the two of them crashing into the hallway, grappling, fighting for control of the weapon. The second man coming around the corner, reaching for his own gun. Madison screaming Minho's name. And then, sirens. Close. Getting closer. The second man grabbing the first, pulling him back. Cops! Move! They ran, leaving Minho on the floor gasping, his ears ringing, his hands shaking with adrenaline. Madison was beside him immediately, her hands on his face, checking for injuries. Are you okay? Minho, are you hurt? Talk to me. I'm fine, he managed. I'm fine. You saved me. Again. Her voice broke. You could have been shot. You could have died. So could you. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, the reality of how close they'd come crashing down on them. The police arrived 3 minutes later, followed by paramedics, followed by what seemed like half of Chicago's emergency services. Minho gave his statement while sitting on the back of an ambulance, Madison refusing to leave his side, despite the paramedic trying to check her blood pressure. Detective Rachel Martinez took their statements, her expression growing grimmer with each detail. When they told her about Marcus Wolf, about the embezzlement and Cortec and the corporate espionage, she made a call. 2 hours later, Marcus Wolf was arrested, trying to board a private flight to the Cayman Islands. In his possession, $2.3 million in cash, encrypted hard drives containing stolen Titan Industries data, and a burner phone with messages arranging the attacks on Madison. The two men who'd attacked Minho's apartment were caught at a hotel near O'Hare, also trying to flee. It was over. Madison and Minho spent the rest of that night at a hotel. Her penthouse loft didn't feel safe anymore, and his apartment was a crime scene. They sat together on the couch in the suite, neither of them able to sleep, watching the sun rise over Chicago through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I almost lost you tonight, Madison said quietly. But you didn't. You put yourself between me and a gun, Minho. You could have died. That's what you do when you care about someone, he said simply. You protect them, no matter what. Madison turned to look at him, and in the golden morning light, he saw tears on her cheeks. When did this become more than just a job for you? Probably the moment I saw you standing in that alley, bleeding but still fighting. Definitely by the time you trusted me enough to tell me about the investigation. He reached up, gently wiping away her tears. Somewhere between then and now, you stopped being Madison Hayes, billionaire CEO, and became just Madison. The woman who works too hard, who cares too much, who's been strong for so long. She forgot what it's like to let someone else be strong for her. I don't know how to do this, Madison whispered. Let someone in. Trust someone completely. I've been alone for so long. Then we'll figure it out together. Minho took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I'm not going anywhere, Madison. Not now. Not ever. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and they sat like that as morning spread across Chicago. Two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, who'd survived danger together, who'd discovered that sometimes the best partnerships are the ones you never saw coming. What happens now? Madison asked eventually. Now, you rebuild. You find a new CFO who isn't a criminal. You actually take Titan public if you want to, or you don't. It's your choice. He squeezed her hand. And I finish my year proving myself to my father, though I have a feeling he's going to be pretty impressed with how I spent the last month. And us? Us, Minho said, turning so he could see her face. We figure out together, one day at a time. Madison smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and transformed her whole face. I'd like that. 3 months later, Minho stood in Madison's rebuilt loft. She'd renovated after the break-in, adding actual security systems and bulletproof glass, though she'd laughed that it was probably overkill. They'd just finished dinner, Korean food from Minho's favorite restaurant, which Madison had learned to love despite her initial skepticism about fermented cabbage. Now they stood on her balcony, watching boats glide along the Chicago River, as spring warmth finally replaced the bitter winter cold. My father wants to meet you, Minho said, leaning against the railing. Officially, I mean, as more than just that CEO my son protected. Is he angry that you told me the truth about Aegis? Are you kidding? He's thrilled. You signed a 5-year contract with us last month. That's what he's been trying to get for 2 years. Though I think he's a little afraid of you. Madison laughed. Good. Fear keeps people honest. Speaking of honest, Minho pulled a small box from his pocket. I have something for you. Madison's eyes widened. Minho, it's not what you think. Not yet, anyway. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant, a lotus flower. In Korean culture, the lotus represents strength and resilience. It grows in mud but blooms beautiful and pure. When I think of you, when I think of everything you've overcome and built, this is what I see. Madison's eyes were shining as he fastened it around her neck. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. You're brilliant and strong and sometimes infuriatingly stubborn. And I... He paused, then continued softly. I love you, Madison Hayes. She kissed him then, there on the balcony overlooking Chicago, and when they finally broke apart, she was smiling. I love you too, Minho Jung. Though I should warn you, I'm not easy to love. I work too much. I'm terrible at sharing control, and I have trust issues. Good thing I'm patient. I know how to share responsibilities, and I've already proven I'm trustworthy. He pulled her close. We'll figure it out together, remember? One day at a time. 6 months after that, Madison walked into Minho's office at Titan Industries. Yes, she'd given him an actual office, claiming it was more efficient than having him work from coffee shops, and closed the door with an expression he couldn't quite read. What's wrong? He asked immediately. Nothing's wrong. She moved around the desk to sit on the edge of it, facing him. Actually, something's very right. Unexpectedly right. Minho waited, noting how she was holding herself. That particular combination of excited and nervous that he'd learned to recognize. I'm pregnant, Madison said simply. For a moment, Minho couldn't breathe. Then he was standing, pulling her into his arms, holding her close as the news sank in. We're having a baby, he said wonderingly. We're having a baby, she confirmed, laughing. I know this is fast, and I know we talked about waiting, but nothing. This is perfect. You're perfect. He pulled back just enough to see her face. Marry me. What? Marry me, Madison Hayes. Not because you're pregnant, though that's another good reason, but because I want to spend the rest of my life waking up next to you, because I want to build a family with you, because you're the strongest, most brilliant, most impossible person I've ever met, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. You don't even have a ring, Madison said, but she was smiling through tears. I have something better. Minho pulled out his phone, opening a photo gallery. I've been working with a designer in Seoul. Look. The photos showed a stunning ring, a sapphire the color of Madison's eyes, surrounded by diamonds set in platinum. Simple but elegant, exactly her style. It arrives next week, Minho explained. I was planning this whole elaborate proposal, but apparently our baby had other timing in mind. Our baby, Madison repeated softly, her hand moving to her still flat stomach. That's going to take some getting used to. So is that a yes? That is absolutely, completely, 100% a yes. She kissed him, and Minho felt his heart expand with joy, so pure it almost hurt. A year later, Minho stood in a private garden in Seoul, watching Madison walk toward him in a dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and comfortable. Important, since she was 6 months pregnant and refused to wear anything that felt like a constraint on her movement. His parents sat in the front row, his mother already crying happy tears. Madison's small group of close friends, mostly Titan executives who'd become family, sat on the other side. Patricia was filming on her phone despite being told not to. Henderson looked genuinely emotional, but Minho only had eyes for Madison, the woman who'd been attacked in an alley and refused to stay down, the woman who'd built an empire from nothing, the woman who'd trusted him with her safety, her company, and eventually her heart. She reached the altar, taking his hands, and they spoke vows they'd written themselves. Promises of partnership, of trust, of facing whatever challenges came together. When the officiant pronounced them married, Minho kissed his wife, while their friends and family cheered. At the reception, as they danced their first dance to a song that mixed Korean and American influences, Madison's idea, naturally, she leaned close and whispered, "Thank you." For what? For stepping into that alley, for helping a stranger, for being someone I could trust. She smiled. For being exactly who you are. Thank you for letting me protect you, even though I know you could have handled those guys yourself. Madison laughed. Maybe. But it was nice not having to. 2 months later, in a Chicago hospital room, Minho held his daughter for the first time. She was tiny, perfect, with a head full of dark hair and her mother's stubborn chin. Have you decided on a name? The nurse asked. Minho and Madison looked at each other. They'd been debating this for months. Korean name or American name, traditional or modern. Grace, Madison said finally. Grace Min-jung Jung. Minho felt his eyes burn with tears. Grace. Undeserved favor, unexpected kindness. That's what they'd both found in each other. And Min-jung, his mother's name, honoring his Korean heritage. It's perfect, he said softly. As he held Grace, with Madison tired but radiant beside him, Minho thought about the path that had brought them here. A rookie security guard helping a stranger. A chance encounter that became something so much more. His father had told him to learn what real security work meant. Minho had learned that, and so much more. He'd learned that sometimes the person you're meant to protect becomes the person you're meant to spend your life with. That duty and love aren't opposite things, but can be woven together into something stronger than either alone. What are you thinking? Madison asked, watching his face. That I'm the luckiest man alive. You're pretty great, she agreed with a smile. Though, technically, I found you. I'm the one who gave you that business card. After I saved your life. True. I'll give you that one. Madison reached for his hand, squeezing gently. Think we can do this? Raise a kid? Run a company? Stay married? Together, we can do anything. And looking at his wife, his daughter, his unexpected family born from a moment of choice in a Chicago alley, Minho believed it completely. What do you think? Did Madison make the right choice trusting Minho? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on finding love in unexpected places. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring narratives. Rate this story from 0 to 10 and let us know what kind of stories you'd like to see next. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.